Hi church family, my name's Jean if you don't know me already, and I serve on the pastoral team at King's. 2020, it's been quite a year, hey. Amongst life's everyday twists and turns, we've all had something to live through together. COVID, a global pandemic. We didn't see that one coming, hey. I'm guessing in this season for each one of us, it has presented different challenges that we've all had to face. But one day we will be the other side of COVID, and some of us with a totally new skill set. Equally as Christians, when we are faced with different challenges, it can be helpful to take stock, to ponder and to reflect, and to ask ourselves questions like, what has it exposed in me? What have I learnt? And what is God saying? When you've lived life as a Christian for some time, you learn quite quickly that Jesus uses and is able to use everything. And yes, I mean everything for his glory when you walk faithfully and closely and humbly with him. How often you look back at your life, even through the toughest times, and he has used them to take you even deeper into him, and that he's never let go of you. On preparation for this little talk, I was reminded of quicksand. And this is sand that readily yields to pressure, that sucks in anything that walks or falls into it. Or one of the dictionary definitions for quicksand is something that entraps or frustrates. The picture I had was from old action movies where the victim falls into what seems to be porridge. And unless there's a helpful vine for them to hold on to either side or grab hold of, he or she disappears slowly without a trace, with nothing but a hat floating sadly on the surface. In fact, I did a little Google on the subject, and it appears that quicksand isn't really that dangerous. And just in case you ever find yourself stuck in it, the thing not to do is to wave your arms around and panic and get all flustered and stressed. The best thing to do is to fall back into it, because apparently the air in your lungs aids buoyancy. See, I bet you didn't think today that you'd listen to me and you'd get some life-saving tips. Anyway, this picture also reminds me of the story of the wise man who built his house on the rock, and the foolish man who built his house on the sand. And some of these stories are so familiar to us as Christians, possibly because we've grown up with them all of our lives, or we've heard them at school assemblies or Sunday schools, or that we may have attended. So if, as a Christian, you would say that you were the wise man, I would like to propose this question to you, the question beyond the other questions. And a good question to ask ourselves is, in seasons of uncertainty, is in who or what am I dependent on, and who is in control of my life? Surely this season just proves that we certainly have no control over events. We need a deep, humble dependence on Jesus. The pressures and trials we face, have faced and will face, can feel like we are in quicksand as Christians. But as we keep building our lives on Jesus and standing on his truths and his strengths and the person of Jesus, we don't need to be pulled in by the quicksand of life's uncertainties or circumstances. Or maybe you've even allowed other things like achievements, success, popularity, relationships, money, and other idols to pull you down, only to realise that it was like building on sand. We might also find that this time has left us questioning areas of life, asking, what am I doing with my life? Should I be doing this with my life? What is God saying? God uses these times to motivate us, to help us evaluate ourselves and to keep us focused on him and his will for our lives. Seasons of isolation can make us withdraw into ourselves, and sometimes we're not seeing the full picture clearly. We need each other. And I would encourage you, where you can, to share these things in life groups still, and with running partners. Have you ever noticed in your life when things are going well or we're successful, we can be tempted to rely on our own strength, and we think we're in control? It's sad how sometimes it takes the tough times or the wilderness moments to realise our total and utter dependence needs to be on Him and Him alone. Paul knew a great deal about this and realised his own fragility and total utter need for God. The central theme of 2 Corinthians is the relationship between suffering and the power of the Spirit in Paul's life. And he mentions Jesus being his help and comfort in trouble. When he was in great pressure, and he really knew about that even to the point of death, he said in 2 Corinthians 1 verse 9, "But this happened so we would not rely on ourselves, but on God." So just as I close, I want to encourage you by saying He is an all-sufficient God. He is enough for you. He is our refuge and our strength in times of trouble, in all of our lives. And I would challenge you to say, know His word. Keep praying. Bring everything to Him. And be refreshed again by His Holy Spirit. And do these things daily. You see, a person who has little knowledge of flying will be greatly afraid when he's flying an aircraft through rough storms. But an experienced pilot and someone who knows his aircraft will not be as afraid and will feel more secure because they've been trained, they've been equipped, they've been listening, they've been watching, they've been learning and taking in knowledge. So they won't be as afraid because they'll have more trust in their knowledge and understanding of their aircraft and their expertise. Let's go back again to Paul and 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9. This time it says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast about my weakness, because of the power of Christ that rests on me." So let's humble ourselves before our Father in these times and at all times, and ask ourselves these questions. What has this season exposed in me? In who am I dependent? Who really is in control of my life? What have I learnt, and what is God saying? God bless.